Good morning, everybody, and it is Happy Friday here on the Tia Talk podcast. At least, I hope it's going to be a good Friday for everybody. So, in ending the week and keeping on with or should I say going back to the prison theme, I watched a new documentary on Netflix the other night, and what got me there was I had been following the story in actual real time when it happened, I want to say a year or two ago. And this topic has always fascinated me, okay? And not to mention that I love true crime, but this goes beyond true crime. And that is the relationships built between an inmate and a correctional officer. Just so go down the rabbit hole with them. But this Netflix special, it was about the Vicky and Casey White story out of Alabama. And it was all over the news because it was such a bizarre and odd relationship to begin with. You know, it just didn't feel like your typical inmate swoons and cons the correctional officer, and she goes for him and they get caught and she gets fired. And no, this went much deeper and it was so strange. So to give you a little backstory, Vicky White worked for 17 years in this particular jail in Alabama. 17 years. She was loved by everybody. She was so dedicated to her job, won awards, she was married to her job. And everybody that knew her and worked with her couldn't find one bad thing to say about her. The inmates who came in and out of this county jail loved her. And I don't mean in that kind of way. They said she was like a mother to them, that she had so much compassion and took the time out for the inmates and just, wanted to make them feel better and give them advice and whatnot. So she sounded like a wonderful, wonderful woman. And that being said, 17 years on the job, come on, she knew how these inmates can be. Hell, I've been around for years and I know how they can be. They're smooth talkers. Yet, one in particular caught her eye. Now, it was a coincidence that his last name happened to be the same as hers, which was White. His name was Casey White. And I don't know if that's maybe what attracted them or kind of caught each other's attention. Because there were other women that worked in this particular county jail. And I'm going to say this very, not in a mean way, but she was 56-ish years old. She didn't age very well. I'm putting that gently. She wasn't, some of us don't age well. I'm going to raise my hand on that. She was not, super attractive. Very, very tough looking. Even when they showed the surveillance videos of her walking, she walked like a tough lady, like a big, big tough lady. But she had a sweet little voice, just a sweet little voice. So it wasn't the stereotypical, hot, young correctional officer. It was, almost in her 60s and, she was getting up there in years and it was starting to show. But somehow, some convict, some inmate caught her attention. Now, mind you, even those of us who have had relationships with inmates and convicts, myself included, I have standards. I know it sounds crazy, but you're never going to catch me falling in love with a serial killer. Okay. You're never going to catch me falling in love with someone who has a violent history. So that being said, and let me go back to that for a second. Let me rephrase that. Yes, I know that some inmates have committed a crime where something violent happened. Okay, there's a difference. I'm talking a repetitive history of being violent. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. In this particular case, 6'4", I think he was 6'3". He was really big. Casey White had a repetitive, extremely violent history. The pending case that he was in jail for when Vicky White met him, he was in there for trying to kill and shoot his girlfriend, and instead he killed her dog. But that wasn't the only thing he had done violently. He shot at another woman. He murdered another woman. So, there you go. There's three women right there. Yet, Vicky White, who was at that point considered like, I guess you could call her like the assistant warden. I don't think that was her exact title, but she ran the jail underneath the sheriff. Somehow Casey White swept her off her feet. Anyways, their whole story became big news when she helped them escape. They had gone undetected, having a relationship while he was still in jail. But she helped him escape, and she went on the run with him. It was mind-blowing to see and hear all the details because they didn't plan anything. There was no planning ahead. She just abruptly sold her house for way under the market value just to have some cash in her hand. And their getaway vehicle was this bright orange, you can't miss it, car. I mean, it was bizarre. This is a woman who ran a county jail. Like a smart woman. So they went on the run, and ultimately they did get caught within days and got into a high-speed pursuit, crashed, and during the crash, over the phone call that took place, because I guess apparently they think it might have been like a butt dial, but 911 was called. And she certainly wasn't calling 911. They were trying to escape. A gunshot could be heard. Now, according to law enforcement, they feel she took her own life. I don't know. I don't think she did. I think it was an accidental shooting. But what has fascinated me with not only this story is the many women who have got into relationships like this with some pretty notorious criminals. Next example would be the women who married the Menendez brothers. One of them was an attorney. These aren't like insecure dummies. They had a very violent charge. They slaughtered their parents. And there's a new Netflix special about them, talking about the stuff that we didn't know. Child abuse, the abuse, sexual abuse with the kids growing up. I don't know if it's true. After watching that Netflix special, I'm kind of tending to believe the brothers myself. But where I'm going with this particular episode here, I've always wanted to talk to these women just to kind of get their perspective. Like, what are they going through? Like, we're always focusing on the inmates. But what about the women? Like, the women who married the Menendez brothers, the scrutiny they must have gone through for all these years. I mean, I don't even know if they have friends. So many women, I follow a lot of these women on TikTok, and they go through a lot of scrutiny. And I get it. Some of them are lonely and insecure, and that's why they hook up with these guys. But many of them are they got their you-know-what together. So what is it? What is it? How does this happen? Is it okay? Should we be judging them? I don't know. But there is another podcast series that I think could follow this, right? So just putting that out there. All right, y'all. Well, you have a good weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week on the next Tia Talk podcast. And remember, my mission is to rescue, but my hope is that one day I don't have to.